Welcome to the Superstar Communicator podcast. My name is Susan Heaton-Wright, a leading impact, speaking and communications expert. My aim is to show you how to make an impact so you will be heard, listened to and respected for career success. Listen weekly to the podcast and go to our website, superstarcommunicator.com. Hello, everybody. This is Susan Heaton-Wright from Superstar Communicator. As you know, here on the Superstar Communicator podcast, we are celebrating the excellence of the Black community for Black History Month. Quite often, there are people who do not have their voices heard, and I want to ensure that Black History Month and also understanding about diversity within the workplace is discussed here on this channel. I hope you will enjoy it. I have the most amazing lady who is somebody that I have known and admired for a number of years. Known as a coach for high achieving introverted women, Carol Stewart is an executive, career and business coach, founder of Abounding Solutions and author of Quietly Visible, Leading with Influence and Impact, which was listed as one of 10 best books written by women to read through lockdown. She coaches women to overcome barriers and challenges, raise their visibility and profile, to exude presence and excel as leaders. She also provides workshops, webinars, training and talks to corporate gender networks and BAME, Black, Asian, Minority, Ethnic networks on career development, personal development and leadership development. Carol is also a leadership team facilitator. In 2015, Carol was named as one of Britain's top 50 business advisors by Enterprise Nation. In 2018, she won a We Are the City Rising Star Champion Awards for her work helping women to progress in their careers. And in 2017, 2018, and 2019, Carol was named a LinkedIn Top Voice UK. And in 2019, listed as one of Britain's inspirational Christian women making a major impact. She's a school governor, volunteers for a youth charity, having previously been chair, mentors women in developing countries, and leads the careers and business ministry of her church. Welcome, Carol.
Thank you, Susan. Hello, and thank you for having me on your podcast.
Do you know, the honour is all mine, and I'm sure, listeners, that you are equally honoured and intrigued to hear Carol today. Now, a lot of your work is in organisations. Can you describe what work you are doing with them?
So I do a lot of coaching leaders, executive coaching, leadership coaching. That's the main focus in organisations, coaching their leaders. And this could be things around promotion, how to be more effective as a leader, any sort of leadership challenges that they may be going through, change management, that sort of thing. And also delivering workshops and webinars on career development, leadership development and personal development. And that's mainly to their networks, their employee resource groups.
And you have a particular focus on the BAME community, and I know that you don't like the term BAME.
No, I don't like BAME.
Sorry, but you put
That's okay. That's okay. Amazing awareness about it, and hopefully as part of this discussion we can talk a bit more about that. Yes, so with their Black, Asian, Minority, Ethnic employees and helping them to overcome some of the barriers. So it's sort of twofold: helping the employees to overcome the barriers to their leadership progression, and now helping organisations to be aware about some of the barriers that may be in place, preventing their ethnic minority employees to get to senior leadership roles.
And what sort of barriers are they? Can you give some examples so that we, the listeners, can understand?
So there's things around unconscious bias,
Yes.
and even the term BAME can be it can be misrepresentative. So I don't know if you would, and I'll give you an example. I don't know if you recall a couple of months ago, Sophie Ridge, the Sky TV presenter, was interviewing the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, and she asked him how many Black cabinet members there were. And he turned around and said, oh, well, we have, Priti Patel, Shivani Runak, and he mentioned them who are Asian. He mentioned the Home Secretary and the Chancellor who are Asian. And that to me shows the lack of understanding, because she'd asked about Black members, but he had grouped them all together under that one term of BAME, or he used BME. And so because of that, that can mask the true picture of when it comes to racial equality. So in terms of the barriers, so things like systemic racism, processes that are in place that will give someone a more favourable opportunity over another, and because of the colour of their skin, unconscious bias that still exists.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that everybody has unconscious bias. And we all need to be aware of the decisions we're making and how we might be influencing those decisions.
And that's it. We need to, and I would say, like, all leaders need to be self-aware, need to develop their self-awareness so that they can identify and see that where they're making decisions concerning individuals, that they're making fair and just decisions. And there's a lot of organisations who will go for unconscious bias training, but there is a growing body of evidence that shows that unconscious bias training, as it is, does not work.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that's missed opportunity, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And what would you suggest as an alternative?
So I think we need a multifaceted approach. So there's things around behavioural change and cognitive behavioural change, and looking at people's beliefs about themselves, about other people. So addressing those, looking at the systems and structures that are in place to see whether there is anything that is disadvantaging particular groups. And just increasing everybody's awareness, giving everybody equal access to opportunities throughout. If you look at organisations, and you will look at the more junior levels, sort of like junior level managers, and you will see more diversity there. But then the more senior we get, and it's for Black, Asian, minority ethnics, as well as the women as well. The more senior you get, the less you see.
And how would you open those doors, for want of a better term? Does that come with training for those individuals so that they feel ready to apply to more senior jobs, as well as educating those that are making decisions?
Yes, so a two-pronged approach. So working with those who are making the decisions, and working with individuals as well about their development, and encouraging them to take responsibility for their own development as well, and do what they can to make sure that they're putting themselves in the best position to go for those roles. So working on any self-limiting beliefs that they may have, looking at how, being strategic about how they position themselves, working with coaches, mentors, and having a sponsor, so someone very senior within the organisation who can champion them, and developing those relationships, and utilising their network as well. So developing a varied network, a diverse network, and utilising their network as well to enable them to be aware of opportunities and help them to navigate those barriers.
Really, really interesting. Now, before we started, we were chatting away, and I knew we had to press the button, otherwise we'd be here all afternoon because we know each other so well. The idea of diversity, people have different opinions about what this means. How do you understand diversity?
So it's recognizing that everybody is different, and everybody has something to contribute. And I remember when diversity started to become a bit of a buzzword in organisations, and this was when I was working in an organisation. I was a leader in an organisation at the time, and I remember, you know, the organisation got in like a diversity officer. I was like a diversity champion for my area, and would go along to these meetings. And I remember thinking, we shouldn't need a separate function for diversity. It should all be integral to everything that people do. And I thought, well, this isn't going to last for long because it's just going to become integrated into everything. But this was what, about 2003, 2004, sort of like early 2000s. And the diversity and inclusion has become an industry within itself. And it's just grown and grown and grown. But yet we still have a big issue. We're not really that much further forward. Yes, we've seen some progress in terms of gender, but we haven't really moved forward, which just shows to me that something is wrong.
Yes. It's interesting you say that. Do you not think much progress has been made?
We've made some progress. I agree, we've made some progress, but not considered. I don't think we've made, you know, how I sometimes look at this, I think I'd say 1969 they sent man to the moon, but yet they still can't get it right when it comes to diversity and inclusion after all these years.
Do you think that when dare I say it, the leaders that we can visualize, those white, late middle-aged men, when they retire, do you think things will change? And please, if you're white, middle-aged man, please excuse me, I love you still. But I'm just mentioning a particular group.
I think things are changing in terms of, you know, I look at a lot of the younger generation, and they're not standing for things like this. They are more in terms of their friendship groups, you know, they're more diverse. Well, a lot of the people that I know, and I look at my sons and his friends and so on, and nephews and nieces, they're more diverse in terms of their friendship groups, whereas a lot of these senior leaders are probably don't mix much with the people who are not like them.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I was speaking to another guest about Cambridge University, the fact that there are more undergraduate intakes from the Black community this year, which is to be celebrated because it is a move forward. And how, you know, I was at university in the late 80s at you know, a university that has been in the paper this week because of the behavior of a minority of people who are targeting poorer students and being derogatory towards them within, I know, it's just unbelievable with their privilege and the wealth and the education that they've had, that they behave in that way. And I remember back to the 80s, my friend put in a paper, an essay, and she was hurled up and accused of plagiarizing, that she'd copied somebody else's work. And when she disputed it, he said, well, you couldn't possibly have written this because you're a girl. And it turned out that the young man that she was accused, he'd given his in later. So he'd obviously nicked hers, written it, and then put it in. But there was that bias there. I know that sort of thing wouldn't happen now because we have moved on and we can dispute those things. Whatever we look like, there are things in place that we can dispute that and complain, and it can be resolved in a professional way, hopefully. Can you see that things like that have happened? I know it's a random thing.
Yeah, and I think that, like you said, the good thing is now people are more aware of avenues in which to challenge
Yes.
those decisions. Whereas sort of back in the 80s, you wouldn't often people wouldn't challenge.
No.
They wouldn't have that know-how, or how do I go about disputing this,
Yes.
because somebody in authority has said this is what's happening. Whereas now people are more aware about, they don't have to accept what is thrown at them. They don't have to accept the status quo. They don't have to accept what is thrown at them. They can question and they can challenge. And I think that is a good thing, that we do challenge. And I think leaders and decision makers need to challenge themselves as well.
Yes.
Whenever they're making a decision that concerns people, ask themselves, what are the reasons behind them making that decision, or choosing that person, to just check their own biases.
Yeah.
And become aware of their biases, because it can be easy to revert to what you're used to, or to your ways of thinking and your beliefs, which have been shaped by, it could be shaped by your upbringing or the influences around you, and we do need to regularly challenge our beliefs.
So what do you think is the way forward for leadership? We've spoken about leadership, but often there are managers, middle managers within an organization who are not labeled as leaders, yet they are leading a team. And they might not have access to leadership training. What would you say? What would you suggest, so that those people are also getting this sort of training and opportunity to really think about their own biases and how they behave towards other people?
Yeah, I do think that senior leaders should look at developing those leaders that are more junior as well, because I often find that those at the very top get it, and those who are at the front line, they understand what's going on. And oftentimes it can be those in the middle, those leaders who are sort of junior middle managers, that don't. I've had people come to me and they've said, well, they've spoken to their chief exec, and their chief exec, they get it and they really want to make a difference and they really want to make a change, but their problem is their immediate line manager, or the next one up, who isn't buying into it. So that's why I think senior leaders need to be making sure that their middle managers are buying into it, and also that I think it should be attached to performance, sort of have diversity and inclusion objectives attached to performance for all leaders at all levels throughout the organisation.
That's a really, really interesting point. Now, one of the things that I'm so proud of you is the book that you wrote earlier this year. And I know that in the panel discussion, there was a discussion around the fact that quite often people's performance is based on extrovert tendencies. And if you are more of an introvert, and there are many, many positive qualities as a leader that you can have as a leader, that you can be marked down for promotion and performance targets. What's your opinion on this?
Yes, because we did have somebody who mentioned that, didn't they, at the discussion. So be asking for feedback. So if your performance is challenged, get feedback and ask for specific feedback as well, because sometimes people will give feedback, but it's very general and it's not specific. Ask for specific examples, and if it's something that you disagree with, check yourself as well to make sure that that there's no validity in what is being said. So make sure that if somebody is challenging your performance, that there is no substance to what they're saying. So make sure that you check yourself as well. But if you don't agree with it, then challenge it, get the evidence, that and if they're unable to provide specific evidence to back it up, then go through whatever the channels are within your organization to address it that way.
That's a really, really good piece of advice. Now, I know that quite often for an introvert and somebody that's wanting to move up and has got the potential to be a leader, their criticism is that they are not proactive in meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I've got an opinion on this because this is an area that I work with, but what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, because the way that meetings are conducted, they don't necessarily play to an introverted person's strength. Introverts typically like to think and reflect before speaking, whereas extroverts typically speak and they process their thinking whilst they're speaking. The way that meetings are conducted, it's a lot of speaking on the spot. Someone will ask a question and expecting on the spot response. So one of the things that I always say to my clients or people who I'm talking to about how they can progress in meetings is understand the dynamics of the meeting, and play to your strengths and do a lot of your thinking beforehand.
Yes.
So before the meeting, go through the agenda, identify those items on the agenda that you've got an opinion on, that you want to speak on. If there's particular people that are going to be in the meeting, maybe get their opinions beforehand so that when you go into that meeting, you've done a lot of your thinking beforehand.
Really, really good point. If you don't mind me adding, I think that it's time also for the facilitator or chairperson doing the meeting to educate them too. Because
exactly.
the outcomes, they want the best possible outcomes and the best content to be shared. And if they understand how we introverts work, they might get the better out of all of us.
And that's it. So a good facilitator, a good chair of the meeting will ensure that everybody's voice at the table is heard. And those who are dominating the conversation, they will, in a subtle professional way, rein them in. And those who are not engaging much in the conversation, they will be able to get them to engage more.
Which is why virtual meetings are a real gift for introverts.
Yeah.
The mute button.
Yes, a lot of introverts say they like virtual meetings because they can make use of the chat facility as well. So yeah, virtual meetings can be a good thing.
Now, I always ask my guests for 3 top tips. Now, your 3 top tips might be around introversion. They might be around diversity, which actually could be good because we're working on Black History Month. But the time is yours to share.
Okay, so 3 top tips. So I'll maybe do a tip for each of the things that we've talked about.
That sounds fantastic. Brilliant.
So someone who is maybe a Black middle manager wanting to get to the senior leader, or someone who is wanting to progress in their Black and wanting to progress in their career, what I would say is have a plan about how you can strategically position yourself for that role, and then look at what are the requirements, look at what are the behaviors that are required for that role, and look at yourself and what you need to do to get there, and look at if you've got any self-limiting beliefs, even if you've got any biases about how you perceive those who are in those positions. Because sometimes if you've had a particularly bad experience, over the years where you've been knocked back and you feel it's because of your color, then that you can then form a bias about people who are in those sorts of roles. So I had a client who, she was very much anytime she was going for a promotion or going for an interview, and if it was an all-white panel, she would automatically think she's not going to get it because she's Black. And then as a result of that, she would then put up without even realizing, it was like she was putting up a barrier. and because of that, then she wasn't being at her best in the interview because she had this barrier around her. It was like a form of protection.
Yes.
But she recognized, so through coaching, she recognized that when it was a mixed panel, in terms of there were Black people or Asian people as well as white people, she was more at ease. And also where the panel made her feel at ease, she performed a lot better. And so once she recognized that she herself had biases about white people that were affecting her and her performance, and she was able to address that.
That is a really good piece of advice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for an introverted woman, I'll say, because that is my area of speciality, and I'll say speaking up in a meeting, because that is one of the most common challenges. And so I mentioned earlier about doing your thinking beforehand.
Yes.
Preparing for the meeting, because oftentimes what lets people down is that they haven't done the preparation. So they may go into a meeting unprepared, and as a result will get put on the spot, and because they get put on the spot, they're maybe flustered what they want to say. And to remember that we're very much led by our emotions, and the way that we think affects how we feel, and we act and behave according to how we're feeling. So if you've gone into a meeting and you're already feeling anxious about being put on the spot, then that will mean that your chances are you're more likely to disengage and to go more inwards. But if you are prepared, you'll go into that meeting more confident. And if somebody does ask you, put you on the spot, just say to them, well, this is my initial thoughts on this matter, and if I have anything else to add, I'll get back to you. So just
Brilliant.
give your initial response, and then once you've had time to think about it, then go back if you've got anything further to add.
That's brilliant. Brilliant advice.
Third one, I'd say for the senior decision makers who want to make their organizations more inclusive, to whenever you're making decisions that affect individuals, challenge your thinking and your beliefs about why you're making that decision about that person, and develop your self-awareness so that you become aware of your own biases and how you can challenge your own thinking and your beliefs, so that when you are appointing people, that you are making a fair decision based on the person, as opposed to what your unconscious bias beliefs and deeply held beliefs that have been shaped through years of being in that sort of environment have influenced your decision making.
That is superb advice. And I hope, listeners, that you will have taken this in, because we are in the 21st century and everyone has some contribution that they can make in a positive way to our world. I'm sure, yeah, you're nodding with me.
That's right. Yes, everybody has something to contribute. Everybody has their own strengths, the things that they're good at and that they can contribute. And that needs to be recognised.
Absolutely. Now, on this note, if listeners want to contact you, how can they contact you? And do you have anything that you offer?
So my website, aboundingsolutions.com, you can go to that, or LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so connect with me on LinkedIn. Carol Stewart, I'm on LinkedIn. And on my website, if I have a free download called Be Bold, Be Seen, Stand Out Online, for introverted women who are leaders, who recognise the importance of being visible online, but they feel a bit uncomfortable with it. It's a free audio training that you can download from my website.
Oh, wow, fantastic. And would men, if there are men listening that are
yes,
would that apply to them too?
Yes, they would, yes. And if could I add one more thing about my petition?
Sorry, go on. What?
Yes, so we talked about the term BAME, and I started on behalf of an organisation that I have set up called a community organisation called Black Northern Women for Black Women in the North of the UK. I've done a petition to the government to stop using the term BAME. as an umbrella term when reporting on ethnic minorities, when writing about ethnic minorities, because the Cabinet Office guidelines do actually state that that term is not supposed to be used.
No, I didn't realize that.
Yes, the Cabinet Office guidelines state that the terms BAME or BME should not be used, and it explains why. But yeah, we see Matt Hancock, we see other government leaders.
Hancock isn't the brightest button, is he? Whoops, I'll get turned up.
We see others using the term.
Yeah, exactly. He should know better. But for me as a white woman, I always worry about how I am going to mention somebody who is Black. Is it okay for me to say this lovely lady is Black? Because I do, I do not want to be derogatory or offend anybody.
Yeah, and that is understandable, and I think that is why a lot of people feel awkward or uncomfortable, because they're not sure whether by calling somebody Black, whether that's the right thing to do, whether they're going to be offended. And so some people do use the term BAME because they think it's less, it won't offend.
Yes.
But yes, I'm okay with someone calling me Black, and if you're uncertain, what I would suggest is maybe asking the person.
Okay, so that's really, really good advice, listeners.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
If anybody wants to sign the petition, if you go to the government's petitions website, unfortunately you have to be living in the UK to sign it. So for I know you've got worldwide listeners. It's only for those in the UK that can sign it. It's on the government's petitions website, and it's called Stop Using BAME.
Is there any chance, Carol, that you could send me the link, because I could put it in the notes just in case anybody wants to do it, because that would be great.
Yeah, yes, I will do.
Brilliant. So is there anything else you want to add, Carol?
No, I just think it's fantastic what you're doing, Susan. The fact, as you said, we've known each other for a number of years now, and not only are you a friend, you are an ally when it comes to anti-racism, and I just thank you for that, to continue doing what you're doing, to raise awareness about the issues and challenging as well.
Well, I'm still learning, and I want my listeners to learn too.
That's good. And that's the thing, we all need to learn and to continue learning, because we're in an ever evolving world, so we need to continuously be learning.
Brilliant. Oh, well, thank you so much for your time, Carol. I know how busy you are, and I'm so grateful, because what you have shared with the listeners has been brilliant today. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And remember, listeners, that I will be putting this up. There will be a transcript of this interview as well. If you want to download it, I will put it on my website. If you have any ideas for other people that you would like me to interview, and I've got quite a few lined up for the future, even through to 2021, do suggest them to me, because this is about you, the listener, and giving you some great ideas on how to be a superstar communicator. So until next time, this is Susan Heaton-Wright from Superstar Communicator. Thanks for listening. You have been listening to the Superstar Communicator podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and review the podcast on iTunes and on apps. Please contact us if you want to discuss any topic, could suggest a topic for us to include, or a guest who could come onto the podcast. Go to superstarcommunicator.com.